Are term limits necessary for good government?
I think we've got very effective term limits at the ballot box. There, every year, are elected officials that are turned out of office. And every elected official comes up for job performance review on a regular basis. But I also know that our founding fathers, the ones that wrote the Constitution, very carefully weighed the issue of term limits. They rejected it because they had enough confidence in the voters. There's another issue, and that is the people of Mississippi have voted twice on the ballot box, at the ballot box, on term limits, and twice the people of Mississippi have overwhelmingly rejected term limits. So based on the foundation of the Constitution, based on the will of the people of Mississippi, I don't think that we need to have term limits. I think one of the worst things we could do is arbitrarily limit our own elected officials, our own congressman terms, while the rest of the nation is not limiting their terms. Mississippi is a very small state in comparison to the population of other states. And the way we have been able to have a much louder voice is because of our experienced elected officials. And to arbitrarily say, well, okay, any elected official is going to leave office after X number of years, while his or her counterparts would stay in office, I think would ultimately impact Mississippi in a severe and negative way.
I think they are, Robert. Your question, of course, is are term limits necessary for good government? I'm the only Republican in this congressional primary that is proposing and advocating term limits. My two opponents have openly said they are against term limits. I think they are necessary. I'm proposing a constitutional amendment to limit congressional terms in the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate to 12 years. I think it's necessary now because politics in Washington has gotten to be about corruption, money, power. Staying on is not really about the country now, it's about the politician and his career. We need to change that. If someone went up there for a limited amount of time, they knew they had 12 years, that's what I'm proposing. They would get busy, I believe, with the work they wanted to do. They would know that there was an end date that they would leave. They wouldn't try to do things simply to perpetuate their career. They would be more about their business. Now, some states have tried, Oregon in particular, I believe, tried a state statute to limit their own representatives and senators' terms. The federal courts found that unconstitutional. I think that would happen as well if we had a federal statute that limited congressional terms. There's nothing in the Constitution about it. That's why I think we need a constitutional amendment. In order to get an amendment, you need a vote to send it out, proposed amendment, by 2/3 of each House of Congress. That's 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate. Once that gets out of Congress, that goes to the states, 3/4 of the states have to ratify an amendment, and that's 38 at present. So that would put it in the hands of the people in their state legislatures, and we would see what the people of the United States want. I believe it's necessary.
Are you optimistic that that would, in fact, take place to get the votes necessary to ratify?
With the changes coming into Congress, with the climate we have now, with so many people now advocating that, I think it has a much better chance than it would before this year when the Congress convenes in January of 2011. And I think if it got to the states, I believe we would have an excellent chance. It just has to cross that congressional hurdle, and I would be an advocate for it.
Are term limits necessary? Our terms are limited, and you quoted me so well when you did a story on me, when we go to the ballot box. One of the reasons why I support the Tea Party movement and grassroots advocacy movements, this is what our forefathers meant. Every 2 years, we go vote congressional members out, U.S. House of Representatives. Every 6 years, we go vote them in or out. That's an elected official's job evaluation when we go to the polls. Now, Washington, D.C. is run amok where Washington, D.C. thinks we, the American people, work for them. Actually, they work for us. But the American people have taken their eye off the prize. Now with the economy being the way that it is, now with health care going through, and it's unconstitutional, that is, we are now taking a stand where we're noticing what's going on in government. So I do not believe in term limits where you have to amend the Constitution for term limits. I believe that an elected official's term is limited when we vote them in or out because they work for us. Now, as your representative, I will only serve 6 terms, which is 12 years, because I believe that public service is a sacrifice, not a career, and it's not going to take that long. You don't have to serve 16 years, 20 years, 30 years to make things happen.